Hello everyone, welcome to another stream. Today we are going to be at the finale, actually, the finale of Hour of Devastation and our 12-part series. Before I begin, I would like to make an announcement that I will be doing a meta talk stream tomorrow where I will be highlighting my thoughts on the meta as I see it post Amonkhet and Hour of Devastation, what cards I think will be standing at the top, and what decks might not quite be as strong as we hope they'll be. So that's going to be tomorrow, and if you could guess the time, it would be at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard. So yeah, that's upcoming. But yeah, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's get right into this stream. Alright. Multicolored. Bloodwater Entity. 1 blue red. Elemental. Flying. Prowess. When Bloodwater Entity enters the battlefield, you may put target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard on top of your library. When I see this card, I think of Enigma Drake and how much worse than Enigma Drake this card really is. For those that aren't aware, Enigma Drake gets +1 power for each instant and sorcery in your graveyard. And this card just doesn't feel like it kind of has the same effect. I know it's a little different in that you can get any instant or sorcery back, but at the same time, that still feels kind of underwhelming when you're just putting it on the top of your library. It's not like you just instantly get it into your hand, and it just feels kind of underwhelming to me. I feel like there's probably an Izzet Prowess deck that you can build in Arena, because I've seen a lot of Prowess creatures around, just based on doing all of these color reviews. There's a lot that you have to work with, and I am interested to see how the Prowess deck works. This could be a card that you can run in it, but it does feel kind of clunky to me, having to put stuff on the top, especially when Field of Ruin is such a popular card in the format right now. They could just shuffle your library if you get, that one instant or sorcery that they're really dreading. They can still interact in some way with it. Yeah, I'm not too excited for Bloodwater Entity, but it probably still goes in the Prowess decks that I'd want to build, because you only have so many Prowess creatures to choose from. There's not too many of them. So I think you have to maybe resort to some somewhat mediocre cards in order to make that deck a possibility. But I do like Prowess decks. They're definitely fun to play with. I know Shaolin himself was actually using a Prowess deck earlier today, which yeah, they are fun. I will not deny that. They're definitely a fun archetype. Wow, look at these next few cards, guys. Dang. I've got a lot of big, heavy hitters today, don't I? Look at all these mythic rares. I got Locust God, the God Pharaoh himself, Samut, Scarab God, Scorpion God, a ton of rares. This is a pretty jam-packed stream filled with some heavy hitters, so I'm excited. Let's talk about the Locust God. Here's some card that we never got in duels. The Locust God, 4 blue red, flying. Whenever you draw a card, create a create a 1/1 blue and red insect creature token with flying and haste. Haste is pretty cool, and flying. I like it. It already kind of reminds me of those Thopter decks that we ran in duels, because the whole point of those Thopter decks, the way that I tried to run it, I would always run Thopter Engineer and try to give them haste anyway. Well, now, in this kind of deck, you don't have to. You can just get these flyers, and they already have haste, as long as your Locust God is out. So I think that's pretty cool, without having even read anything else. 2 blue, red, draw a card, then discard a card. So you get a loot effect. No complaints from me yet. And then the standard ability of when Hour of Devastation gods die, you return them to their owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. 6 mana, 4/4, flying. Um, he's not that expensive. I kind of don't like him in comparison to Scarab God in terms of you're spending 5 mana for a 5/5, whereas this you're spending 6 mana for a 4/4. Then again, Scarab God can't fly. So Locust God does have evasion. I think this god's pretty decent. You do need to brew around him, and you might need to make some concessions, but I feel like there's a deck that wants this card. Like, if you can just throw a bunch of ops in, or I wonder if there are any creatures, if there's any creatures that can help you draw cards as well, and I'm sure there are. I feel like the Locust God could actually work for you, but you need to have him in the right brew. I don't know. You probably could just throw him in any deck, and you're going to be able to make, flying insects, but in particular, I'd like to see him in something, revolves around card draw. There's certain cards that come to mind, such as, what's that card where you just draw basically as much as you want? Let's see if I can find it real quick. In any case, there is a lot of card draw in blue, like Hieroglyphic Illumination. There's a card I have in mind that I just can't seem to find. Commit to Memory is interesting. You could make 7 insects, but you might also give them a sweeper. Pull from Tomorrow was the one I had in mind. That could also work. I'm just trying to think if there's any card draw that doesn't say card draw. You know how like Rogue Refiner just draws a card as soon as you get him out? Is there any card like that that can really just not only be a creature, but also something that benefits your Locust God? I think that's kind of the use that I want to get out of this. I know Nezahal is one, but I wouldn't want to run Nezahal and Locust God in the same deck. I think that's going a little bit over the top. But there's probably cards that can definitely synergize here. And if there aren't, then we always have Dominaria. We can always look at Locust God and see if there is a tempo-y, card draw deck that works for him. Okay. Here is another big bomb. Nicol Bolas God Pharaoh. 4 blue, black, red. +2. Target opponent exiles cards from the top of his or her library until he or she exiles a non-land card. Until end of turn, you may cast that card without paying its mana cost. +1, each opponent exiles 2 cards from his or her hand. -4, Nicol Bolas deals 7 damage to target opponent or creature an opponent controls. -12, exile each non-land permanent your opponent's control. Wow. So you're committing a lot of mana to cast this guy, but I still think he's pretty good. The fact that, like, say you have them at 13 or less life, and you just top deck you have them at 7 or less life. So if you had them at 7 or less life, and you just top decked a Nicol Bolas, you just win on the spot, because he'll just deal the remaining 7. That already seems pretty sweet. I have seen him used to a high degree in Standard. Not a high degree, but I've seen him used, and when he has been used and has even a turn or two, he generally just wins the game. I do distinctly remember a game in Standard where a Nicol Bolas God Pharaoh resolved, and they just +2'd him once, and they actually stole a Chandra with him. You can do these kind of things, You can steal Scarab Gods, like whatever their top card from their library is, until it's a non-land, you may cast it. That's crazy. Yeah, I think that ability is great. The fact that he can tick up and annoy their hand, like, just make them discard 2. Not just discard, but exile. So it's not like they can get GPG synergies going. No, that stuff will be in exile. Seems great. Eugenides sends a heart. Oh, thank you, Eugenides. Send a heart back. Get a little romance in both of our chats. Thank you, Huge. Appreciate you being there in spirit. um, and -12, exile each non-land permanent in your opponent's control. So you're basically gonna win most of the time if you get this ultimate out. It's not the easiest ultimate to get out because you do need to +2 a bunch of times. When you play him, he'll go up to 9, then he goes up to 11, and then he goes up to 13, and should he ultimate at that point, you'll win. The problem I have with that line is that I feel like you're already winning by that point. Do you really need to tick up with Nicol Bolas 3 times and then ultimate? Are you not already winning by that point? I mean, if you aren't, there you go. You get to you get to ultimate and win more, I guess. But no, I think he's good. The fact that he has 4 abilities makes him a little more versatile. 3 that he gets to choose from and an ultimate to work towards. I really like him. He is a big expensive planeswalker though, so you can't just slam him and expect all of your dreams to come true. Like, it is kind of tough. Like, if they're putting pressure on you, he's not going to save you the game, you know? Say you're facing some aggressive deck, any deck that tries to be fast and beat you up by turns 5 or 6. If you're facing those decks, Nicol Bolas, I don't think he'll save you the game if you've just been dirtling up to that point. You do need to have the right deck for him. One that probably sweeps the board up a whole lot and has cards like Scarab God and what have you. I think he does require a certain kind of style deck before he thrives, but he's really good in those decks. He just is really expensive, and you need to make sure that you can get him out at the right time. And that's why I think he's a popular sideboard card in Standard, because there is a card called Vraska's Contempt, and you just need to play him at the right time, you know? Which can be tricky, but if you can do it, if you can get this Nicol Bolas out and they have no answers, you've basically won the game. If you can just get even like 1 or 2 upticks, like, it's very difficult to deal with. Alright, let's move on to Obelisk Spider. 1 black green spider. Reach. When Obelisk Spider deals combat damage to a creature, put a -1/-1 counter on that creature. Whenever you put 1 or more -1/- counters on a creature, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. It almost reminds me of Afflict, because with Afflict, if they block target creature, they still take damage. And this one, they take damage and you gain life, as long as you put a -1 counter on a creature, which would mean they'd have to block it. I guess it's more minus counter food for thought, but it feels kind of feels a little mediocre to me. I mean, sure, you're gonna gain life, and sure, you're gonna nerf things, but I don't know. You're only gaining 1 life at a time, right? The best case scenario that they have to block this every turn, and then you're gaining life 1 piece at a time. Sounds kind of mediocre to me. It does stop flyers, which I guess is nice. You could really wreck a flying deck by just not only blocking them, but nerfing the creatures that you block. He's not that good, though, because if, say that you do attack with him and they just don't block, then you just deal 1 damage, and that's it. I think the synergy that I'm missing here, though, is that if you put him in the minus counters deck, and you have your Channeler Initiate, then they're still going to lose 1 life. It's not like, say you play Channeler Initiate, and it puts the 3 minus counters on itself. They're not going to lose 3 life, and you're not going to gain 3 life, because it's 1 or more. So it doesn't actually work very well, even in that regard. Like, you're going to be pinging them for life drain, but it's very slow. And even in the minus counter decks, where you have Channeler Initiate, where you have effects that put minus counters around, it just still feels quite slow to me. I'm not really a fan of it. The more I look at it, the less enthused I become. I thought I might have found something with the minus counters. It goes right in the color type. It might work, but it doesn't seem that good to me. Alright. Resolute Survivors, 1 red, white. Human Warrior. You may exert Resolute Survivors as it attacks. Whenever you exert a creature, Resolute Survivors deals 1 damage to each opponent and you gain 1 life. This card also sounds kind of mediocre. I guess you can throw it in your exert decks, but it's still a slow ping. It's very similar to the spider in that you're just pinging them slowly, and that's great and all, but it takes a while before you even start to feel that. I just feel like it's too slow. 1 damage, 1 life gain. The thing that makes this a little bit better than Obelisk Spider is that if you exerted like 3 creatures in a turn, then they would take 3 extra damage and you would gain 3 life. Whereas with Obelisk Spider, if you put the 3 minus counters on Channeler Initiate, they still only lose 1 life and you only gain 1 life. So from that respect, I think Resolute Survivors is at least a little bit better. But I still think it's pretty mediocre. You would need to have a lot of cards exerting just to really start to ramp this damage up, and that does become vulnerable to board wipes, sweepers. Not too impressed. Alright, River Hoopoe. Green, blue, bird, flying. Tap 3 green and a blue. You gain 2 life and draw a card. 1/3. That card's not bad. It kind of reminds me of a vampire that we have from, let's see. There's a white flying vampire that I'm going to bring up real quick. And I know they're completely different colors, but I still want to show you guys, provided I can find it. Here we go. So Skyblade of the Legion, 1 in a white, 1/3 flyer. This card actually saw play in my mono white vampires deck in just Ixalan block, or just Ixalan set rather. And it's a pretty bad card. I hate it. And now we have basically a strictly better version of that, even though the colors are different. But it's kind of awkward to cast. Like, you need to have both of these colors open to cast it on turn 2, which is difficult. The question is this ability good enough to validate this card? I kind of don't think it is. It still dies to Lightning Strike and Baffling End, and a lot of cards. It does dodge Movement of Craving, but I don't know. 5 mana for that effect, and don't get me wrong, I really like that effect. Drawing a card and gaining 2 life sounds amazing, but having to tap 5 mana to do it, I don't know if I like that. And I want to like it. I want this to speak to my inner jank, but even my inner jank has some problems with this, which probably means this card isn't quite good enough as much as I want it to be. Yeah, I think it must be kind of a mediocre card. It's a little awkward to cast, and you have to have a lot of mana, at least 5, before you can really take advantage of it. I'm not a fan. Samut, the Tested, 2 red green, +1. Up to 1 target creature gains double strike until end of turn. -2. Samut the Tested deals 2 damage, divided as you choose among 1 or 2 target creatures and or players. -7. Search your library for up to 2 creatures and or planeswalker cards, put them onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. 4 loyalty. Um, hmm. I don't know if we really have like a Super Friends deck right now for Samut's ultimate. Her ultimate doesn't seem very good. Her -2 is okay. Her +1 is great. In the right deck. I know that when they were first hyping up, Arena, they were showing this deck that had Carnage Tyrant and Samut in it, and my goodness, that deck looked fun. Something about giving a Carnage Tyrant double strike and just sounds amazing. I kind of wish it could say up to one target creature against double strike and +1/+1. You know, it's a little underwhelming, but with a card like Carnage Tyrant, if you can build that kind of deck, Samut does sound pretty good. My question is, there's a card we're going to be talking about later, like Appeal, for example. I guess Appeal wouldn't work that well with Carnage Tyrant, but is there a way that I can give Carnage Tyrant double strike that's not Samut? Like, what if I just go about this differently? I don't have to run this Planeswalker to make Carnage Tyrant a beast. There's probably other pump spells, other effects that can make Carnage Tyrant good. I just can't think of many ways to give double strike, though, other than Samut. It's one of the few ones I can think of. So maybe it works. Maybe you can run your Carnage Tyrant Samut deck. I don't know how good it would be, but it's definitely interesting. It's just the fact that her -7 just seems, I don't know. I guess they can be creatures. I did say that it looks for planeswalkers, but you can also get creatures. You could get 2 big dinosaurs or something. So it's not bad. -2 does feel a little underwhelming, but could work. She's just okay. I don't think she's the worst planeswalker we've had, but I don't think she's anything to write home about either. Just sort of a card that's in the middle. Does sound fun though, giving double strike. Double striking Carnage Tyrants, that is always fun. Alright. So here is a card that is basically defining standard, not defying standard. And I think it's the most expensive card in standard currently. The Scarab God. 3 blue black. God. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses X life and you scry X, where X is the number of zombies you control. 2 blue black. Exile target creature card from a graveyard. Create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 4/4 black zombie. When Scarab God dies, return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. 5/5. So, what makes this card so good is that any creature in any graveyard, not just your own. And I think that's what makes him so good. It doesn't even have to be just your graveyard. Any graveyard can take advantage of Scarab God's ability, which just makes him so brutal. There's this popular conundrum in Magic right now, where if you have 9 mana open and they don't counter your Scarab God, you already get a ton of value. Because you play Scarab God, say they Vraska's Contempt your Scarab God, you just animate any creature in any graveyard in response and gain control of it. And that is just nasty value. Like the fact that they've Vraska's Contempted your god and they still have to deal with some big 4/4, creature. Sounds nasty. Additionally, if you get even a couple turns with him, I think you just win, because once you start making zombies of these cards at the beginning of each upkeep, they're going to lose the life, and you're going to scry. Came in on Scarab God. Excellent, yeah. it's just so brutal if you have 9 mana open. You play this, they Vraska's Contempt it, you get any creature from any graveyard. And I really like this first ability. Scrying, as Shaolin knows, is something that I am a fan of. So just passively getting this, not even having to spend mana and getting free scries for my zombies, it's just so brutal. Not only that, but they lose life. Add insult to injury. You already have a 4/4, token of some card, and then they lose life and you scry for it. It's just so good. There's so much like incidental synergy like that gets thrown into Scarab God because of that first paragraph there. Not only that, there's some really good targets you can hit. We're gonna have hostage takers and chupacabras that we're able to use with this effect, and I think that's going to be fun. Being able to to get a hostage taker back from your graveyard and steal an opponent's creature. Whew. Or alternatively, say you're scared your hostage taker will die, then just get your chupacabra out of a graveyard and kill any creature on the board, and your chupacabra becomes a 4/4 zombie that scries you and makes them lose life on every upkeep. Really difficult. One synergy, not synergy, but one way to combat Scarab God right now, and I know I shouldn't be talking about ways to combat cards, I should be talking about the cards themselves, but one thing you can do to stop a Scarab God, so to speak, is if you do kill it and it doesn't get exiled, you can always kill it on their end step, and then they get it on the next end step. So the trick to dealing with Scarab God, if you don't have a way to exile him, is you gotta kill him at a turn where they'll get him back on the next end step. Scarab God deserves it, yeah. Trying to get some anti-Scarab God tech in here. We're gonna have to prepare for this guy, so gotta talk about ways to deal with him. And one way to deal with him, you just gotta kill him on an end step. Like, say it's your opponent's end step, then they'll get him back at the next end step, which could work. You don't ever want to kill him main phase 1 or main phase 2. If you kill him main phase 1 or main phase 2, they'll get him back at the very next end step, which is really bad for you. At least this way you can stall it out a bit more. But yeah, that is one way to deal with him. You have to kill him and then hold open Essence Scatter. I like that line. It's so easy to talk about how he's good. What's hard is to talk about how you beat him. And that's what I want to... When I put my lens over Scarab God, I look at that god and I'm like, how the hell do I beat you? Turn into like Rambo, just put on my war paint and figure out how the hell I deal with this thing. That's kind of me right now. And how I want to... destroy Scarab God decks. I need to figure it out. I need to figure something out. Because he is enemy number 1 right now. If there's a public enemy number 1 in the meta after Amonkhet rotates in, it's going to be Scarab God. We're going to need to have ways to deal with him. Vraska's Contempt is one. Essence Scatter can work. And yeah, he's going to be a tough card. Really good. Really good card. A really good and tough card. Most expensive card in Standard, to my knowledge. Okay. Scorpion God, 3 black, red. God. Whenever a creature with a -1/-1 counter on it dies, draw a card. 1 black, red, put a -1/-1 counter on another target creature. When the Scorpion God dies, return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. I kind of wish he was black-green, because the minus counters decks do need help, and he doesn't help them because he's red. So you can't put him in your black-green minus counters deck, unfortunately. I think he's probably the worst god that we're getting, but that being said, he does have the biggest body for the least mana commitment. Like, Scarab God, you get a 5/5 for 5. Locust God, you get a 4/4 for 4. This guy you get a 6/5 for 5. So in terms of just, having a big body, Scorpion God does it quite well. I think what you need to do with Scorpion God is run him in an Azer's Gateway deck, or a deck that just has access to a lot of mana. That's kind of what I have planned for Scorpion God. Just get that Azer's Gateway going. And I know I'm only going to be able to make one color mana, but what I'm going to do, essentially, is if I have more black mana in my mana pool, not my Azer's Gateway, but if my mana pool has more black mana than red mana, then my Azer's Gateway will make red mana. And I'll just try to put as many counters on things as I can and draw a bunch of cards. I think that's the best use that I can find for Scorpion God. And it sounds pretty fun for that particular brew, but other than that, I haven't figured out too much for him. I just don't really see him in other decks. You're not going to use him in your red-black pirate deck, for example. Maybe you can run him in your red-black control decks that run Vraska's Contempts and Angraths, but I feel like I might rather have Angrath. I don't know. Because Angrath at least does hand hate and can steal cards and kill them if they have 3 CMC or less. Scorpion God just doesn't feel quite on that power level. Unless, of course, you have Azer's Gateway and you're able to just get like 15, 20 mana out and then put 5 or 6 minus counters around. If you're able to do that, then Scorpion God might not be so bad. Okay. Unraveling Mummy. 1 white, black. 1 in a white, target attacking zombie gains lifelink until end of turn. 1 in a black, target attacking zombie gains death touch until end of turn. 2/3. Wow. This card looks fun. I wish we had all the Shadows and Eldritch Moon zombies, because I would totally brew with this in mind. I love the fact that you can just either switch to being a creature hate deck with death touch, or you can switch to being a deck that relies on lifelink to, get ahead. I like it. Sadly, I think zombies are just not in the best spot right now, so it's probably still not going to do it for me, but it's a pretty sweet card nonetheless. Alright, farm to market. Instant, destroy target attacking or blocking creature. Market, 2 in a blue, sorcery, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. Market is actually a net disadvantage, in a way. When you have to cast 1 spell to draw 2 spells, and then you discard 2 cards, it's a net disadvantage, because, as I showed with my fingers, you're spending 1 card to draw 2, and then you discard 2, but you already used 1 to cast it. So it's like a net disadvantage. The way that it isn't a net disadvantage is that it is a Aftermath card. Pretty sweet GPG card. I don't know if it is. It could be. You have to discard a lot, though. Assuming you have a big hand filled with creatures that you want to discard, maybe you can use it. I do like the fact that for 3 mana, you destroy target attacking or blocking creature. For 3 mana, that's pretty decent. It's actually quite cheap. It's not like you're having to splash double white like you would for Settle the Wreckage. It's only a 3 mana card that can kill any attacker as long as it doesn't have indestructible. Market is just interesting. You don't have to use Market. You can sort of set your hand up for Market. That's what I'm trying to say. You don't have to cast Market as soon as you use Farm. You can sort of wait until Market becomes a card that's decent. It just feels a little underwhelming, and maybe that's because I'm used to Cathartic Reunion in my life. I'm used to cards like Cathartic Reunion that are way better than Market. But But maybe it's okay. Maybe because you have farm as the first half, it'll sort of elevate the second half, you know? Because I do think farm isn't bad. Anyway, let's talk about Consign. Consign to Oblivion. Consign 1 blue. Instant. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Oblivion 4 and a black. Target opponent discards 2 cards. I like this card. It's basically Disperse, except you have a discard effect into it. This card's fun. Like, just getting Disperse that has this sort of effect on the back of it. Whew. I could easily see this being like a 1 or 2 of. I love making people discard cards. Enchantments for blue. Yeah, you could definitely get rid of Drake Havens. The problem with Drake Havens is they normally have like a stacked hand, because they have access to cards like Hieroglyphic Illumination and any cycling card, where their hands are normally quite filled. So I don't know if it would get rid of Drake Haven. They might just discard, you know, anything else. But I still think it's pretty good. It is a 2-for-1, right? You're literally getting net value every time you cast Oblivion, and it's not even on the first half of the card. Like, you get a free Disperse and a net value card like Oblivion on the back. I really like that. Okay. Claim 1 black, sorcery. Return target creature card with CMC 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Fame 1 and a red. Aftermath. Target creature gets +2/+0 and gains haste until end of turn. CMC 2 or less is pretty cheap. This doesn't hit a ton. It hits everything that Fatal Push hits without Revolt. But at the same time, this does work in low-to-the-ground decks. You know? Poisoner is a good hit, yep. See, it's hard to evaluate these cards because they look kind of crappy, some of them, but you have to consider that they're kind of like 2 cards, so it's different. The problem with Poisoner, though, is if we're running a pirate deck, for example, I'd much rather run March of the Drowned than Claim. I think March of the Drowned just gets you a lot further than Claim to Fame would. Direfleet Daredevil would be nice. Yeah, if we're talking pirates, again, I think March of the Drowned is better. But if we're talking your typical standard deck, where you're just running, you know, a couple Direfleet Daredevils and a bunch of other shenanigans that are not pirates, then Claim to Fame is better. It needs to be a fast deck. You can't just run this in some control deck. You have to be racing them, I think, for this card to work. Because Fame gives haste and +2/+0. Cards like Mardu, or not cards, decks like Mardu Vehicles sort of come to mind because you have black and red and you can run Unlicensed Disintegration. The problem with that deck, though, is that you cannot return your Heart of Khorans to the battlefield, so... Oh, to the battlefield. Okay. I sort of missed that detail. I just thought it was to your hand, but you actually get it into the battlefield. Huh. So, yeah, Direfleet looks a lot bit better. If it just goes straight to the battlefield, and you can give it haste, and it has first strike by default, so it becomes a 4/1 with first strike that can target your opponent's graveyard. Whew. That sounds like a brew. That sounds like a good brew. I could see myself making a deck around just that right there. You just have to include enough... it might actually go in. It's tough though, because you have to compete with March of the Drowned, and you have to decide what do you like more. Do you like getting 2 creatures back to your hand, or 1 creature back to the battlefield, and they gain haste? And I want to build decks with Poisoner and Direfleet Daredevil and Claim, but it just makes me wonder if I'm already running the red-black Pirates deck, am I supposed to run March of the Drowned instead? It's kind of weird, huh? I feel like Claim to Fame might work better in a less synergistic deck. That way you're not constrained to just pirate cards, right? So you run Direfleet Daredevil, and you run any other aggressive little critters that don't have to be pirates. Like, they can be pirates, but they don't have to be. You're not restricted to just that. Like Rampaging Ferocidon, for example. I know the card's banned in Standard, but that's kind of the sort of deck that I'd want to use. Something that races their life total with Direfleet Daredevils and Rampaging Ferocidons and carry Zevs. Like, something like that, you know? I feel Claim to Fame would work quite well with. Get that Raptor Hatchling back. It's kind of interesting, because the Raptor Hatchling would have +3, it would be a 3/1 with haste. Yeah, I don't hate Claim to Fame. I think it's interesting, but I would need to brew with it. You don't just throw Claim to Fame in a deck and be like, yep, this is going to work. You have to really think about it. And it is kind of something I want to do. I do like that Direfleet Daredevil Claim idea. I think that by itself is really good, and then you just have to figure out what the rest of the deck is. And that's what I haven't figured out. You need to have other things. Maybe Cut to Ribbons could work. Since you're already in black-red, you can run Cut to Ribbons, you can run Claim to Fame, you can run Direfleet Daredevil, and just a bunch of fast, aggressive creatures. Seems decent to me. Okay. Struggle to Survive. Instant, 2 in a red. Struggle deals damage to target creature equal to the number of lands you control. I like this card. It gets better the longer the game goes. At a bare minimum, on turn 3, with 3 land out, you'll be dealing 3 damage to target creature, which is mediocre. 3 damage for 3 is definitely mediocre. But once you get into these board states where you have, 5 or plus mana, then Struggle starts to be a really good card at that point. And I think that's part of why it's popular in Naya Monsters or Gruul Monsters, either one. I think it's popular in those decks because they actually can get into the late game. Because they have a lot of Eternalize mechanics, so even if you're able to stave off their initial assaults, they're just gonna keep getting things back with Eternalize. They'll get their Jade Light Rangers to find themselves more threats. And I think that's why it works. I think Struggle, you get into these long games where you get 6+ mana out, and your struggles start to really work. And additionally, you do have a way that can deal with Scarab God. I know that's the other unspoken combo, it is anti-Scarab God tech. Which is cool, because it is instant speed. I like it. It seems pretty good to me. I'm not totally thrilled about it, but cards that get better over time, I'm generally a fan of. Alright. Appeal to Authority. 1 green, sorcery, until end of turn. Target creature gains trample and gets +X/+X, where X is the number of creatures you control. Authority, 1 and a white, sorcery. Tap up to 2 target creatures your opponents control. Creatures you control gain vigilance until end of turn. This card's great. The one problem that this card has is we might not be able to make it work as much as we want it to in Arena post Amonkhet. We're not going to have Stram's expertise. And there's another card that I am forgetting the name of, but it's a 2-mana sorcery that creates two 1/1 Thopters, or servos. Thopters are the ones that have flying, so it creates two servos. And we don't have access to those cards. We don't have, we don't have all those servos. We don't have Saram's expertise. So Appeal does lose power in Arena due to the fact that the token decks are going to be a little bit weaker. And I think Saram's expertise is a big miss, actually. I think the fact that we don't have that is going to hurt token decks somewhat significantly. It's a pretty amazing card. We don't have Angel of Invention. I don't know if Angel of Invention goes into the Appeal to Authority, like green-white decks that are in Standard. It might. But there's definitely cards from Kaladesh and Aether Revolt that I really wish we had. That being said, I don't think Appeal to Authority is going to be bad. It still gives Trample and +X/+X. I'm sure that you can make like a white-green Vampire Brew, or you can just still make these token decks. Maybe even with Cats, with Anointed Procession. There's definitely ways you can work with Appeal to Authority, even without the standard synergies that we wish we had, to still make it work. It is going to be worse, though. That being said, I'm still pretty excited for this card, and I do want to try it out quite a bit. Okay, Leave to Chance. 1 and a white instant. Return any number of permanents you control to your hand. 3 and a red, chance, sorcery. Discard any number of cards, then draw that many cards. So I guess the scenario where this is great is you return a bunch of land and then you draw a bunch of cards. Like, say you're flooded out. But that is already assuming that you have a bad board state. I think this card's pretty garbage. I guess you could return your Regal Caracols to your hand and play them back, but man, I feel like this card's bad. Because it makes the assumption that you're going to have to discard permanents you already have on the battlefield just to try and top deck answers or something. It's like so strange. I don't really like it that much. I don't know. Getting lands back into your hand and then discarding those lands, like, you're gonna lose mana. It's not like you have to, like, you are making some concessions, just for this to work, and I don't like making concessions. One thing as a Magic player that I do not like doing is making concessions. And Leave to Chance definitely feels like a card that does that. Alright. Reason to Believe, 1 blue, sorcery, scry 3, 4 and a green, sorcery, Aftermath. I do have to tilt my head to read this, so don't make fun of me. Look at the top card of your library. You may put it onto the battlefield. If it's a creature card, if you don't, put it into your hand. Okay, this card's okay. I like the Scry 3. I do like me some Scries. It's just really clunky and expensive, though, which I don't know if I want. Like, normally I like scrying in decks that are more control-based. And this isn't a control-based card. This is a card that wants big creatures. And you're running control-based cards and creature-based decks. It just sounds really weird. So I don't like it. If it was like, if it's an instant or sorcery, you may put it into your hands. I don't know. Even then, like, I'm already having to go into some hypothetical scenarios to try and rationalize why I might like this card, which is a bad sign. That's a bad sign right there. And I love scrying, I really do, but I think this is the wrong kind of deck to scry with, and I just don't really like Reason to Believe. Prowess. So you have your prowess creatures out, and you scry, and you get more prowess creatures out. The problem is green doesn't really use prowess, you know? So you're going to be losing believe unless you splash for green. Prowess is generally just blue and red, and green, I don't know what the green would even do. I guess you could use green for pump spells, because there's good green pump spells. Like, I went over a card yesterday, actually, and I'll go to it real quick. Gift of Strength, instant, +3/+3 in reach. I'd much rather have Trample, but I guess you could make the splash for that kind of thing, but it sounds pretty bad to me. It's definitely, we're definitely in tier 2 to probably even tier 3 Janktown at that point. If you're making 3-color scry with reason to believe. Okay. Grind to dust. 1 in a black sorcery. Put a -1/- counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. Dust sorcery. Exile any number of target creatures that have -1/- counters on them. Whew, this card's actually not bad if you can have the mana to get it to work. Like, I'm going to go to a card real quick from Rivals of Ixalan that I'm going to compare it to, and it is very different from it, so don't take the comparison with a grain of salt. They are quite different cards. Profane Procession, 3 mana, and you have to tap another 5 mana, and then you deal with your first creature, right? So 8 mana total to deal with 1 creature. And I know that it has the other half where you can get cards back. I'm not going to get into that. I'm talking strictly terms of how much mana you're spending. Grinds to Dust, 6 mana to exile 2 target creatures. That sounds really good. I'm surprised I haven't seen this card more, because I feel like you can get a pretty decent 2-for-1. Like, as long as you have 6 mana open, you can deal with any 2 creatures. And even if you can't deal with them, you can at least nerf them so that you might not take lethal next turn. Adding Grasping Dunes before Dust. Which one is Grasping Dunes? I'm pretty sure it would be in the land over here, actually, wouldn't it? Grasping Dunes. I guess it's not over here, is it? Let me card that real quick. I think it's a desert, right? Oh, yes, yes, yes. Yep. I remember that now. Yeah. Exile any number of target creatures that have -1/-1 counters on them. Any number. Wow. That's fun. Like, you don't even need to use too much synergy. It's not like this needs to go in the black-green minus counters deck. Like, I feel like you could, yeah, Grasping Dunes. That sounds pretty fun. I'm with you there. It's AKH. Yep. You just you got me thinking, Shaolin, of like what other ways can I make this get even better. The problem is every time you want to make this card better, you need to make a concession. I do consider Grasping Dunes a concession to your overall deck. Your mana base gets worse because of it. And you have to sacrifice Grasping Dunes. It might. I don't know if I like it enough to make a concession to my mana base to do that, to make this one card work. Does make me wonder though. Like you bring up a good point that it doesn't just have to be the creatures that you put the counters on. If you have other counters on other creatures, you can make it work even more. They don't know what Soulscar Mage is? Man, MTG bot. Punting. Not if you want deserts. it's tough because a lot of the cards that I want to use go in different colors, you know? Soulscar Mage would have to make this deck be Mardu, which might not be bad if you take into consideration that this only requires one black and this only requires one white. So it's not like you're making a huge concession, but it does have to be a 3-color deck at that point, which might cause you some problems. I do kind of want to get derailed and see if there's anything in, not Ixalan, in Amonkhet or, you know, our dev. Just really quick. Like, let's see. Festering Mummy, kind of meh. Splendid Agony. Would you splash Splendid Agony to make this work? Or is that overkill? I think that's overkill. You know what card you could use, though? I think this card would be good. Ifnir, or is that -1, -1? No, Ifnir would work. I think Bane Whip Punisher is how I would do it. Bane Whip Punisher, when it enters the battlefield, you may put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. I feel like Bane Whip Punisher works pretty well with, what was the name of the card I just talked about? Let me just bring it back up real quick so that I remember. Grinds to Dust, okay. So I think that Bane Whip Punisher synergizes quite well with Grind to Dust because I feel like it's good even if you don't have Grind to Dust, you know? Both of those cards are good standalones, which is why I like both of them in the same deck. Like, they can just both work well on their own as well as together, which I think is a neat synergy. Furthermore, you could play Bane Whip Punisher, put a -1 counter, and not have to sacrifice Bane Whip Punisher, right? You could just use Bane Whip Punisher, not have to sack it, and then cast Dust. What's going on, Omega Bees? Welcome. Happy of you to join us. All right. Yes, we are getting derailed. I understand that. I don't know if I like that instant that puts minus counters. It's really janky. We're getting very janky at that point, and I'm trying to keep it. I'm trying to keep it as competitive as I can without having to run a 3-mana instant that puts 2 minus counters on a card, which I feel like would make the deck worse. You don't have to build your entire deck around Grind to Dust. That's the thing. You don't have to just run a minus counters deck for Grind to Dust to work. You can just have Grind to Dust as its own little thing, and then maybe splash Bane Whip Punisher for that extra additional value. I don't think I want to build a deck around it, but I want it as a standalone. Shard does say that there is better mana fixing now with Amonkhet, Our Devastation, and with Dominaria, and maybe you're right. Maybe I can run those Grasping Dunes because of that. But yeah, this is a card that I want to keep an eye out for when Amonkhet goes live, because it is really good. 6 mana to deal with any 2 creatures. I like it. Just in time for the tractor stream. No, Shalin, you are incorrect. This is not a tractor stream. Okay. Refuse to cooperate. 3 and a red. Instant. Refuse deals damage to target spell's controller equal to that spell's CMC. Cooperate. Aftermath. Copy. Instant or sorcery. You may choose new targets for that copy. Oh my goodness. Ooh, I hate this card. Whoo, man. If any of you guys saw the deck that I built yesterday, you'll know exactly why I hate this card. There's a big reason why I don't like this card. Oh my god. All of these spells they could take advantage of. Look at all these spells. Look at all of them. Oh my goodness. That feels so bad. I just cast Zakama and they deal 9 damage to me. What if I copy an approach? What if they cast their second approach and I copy it? I I choose new targets? What on earth would happen? Would it be a tie? Can gain 9 life right back. That's true. I was really worried for a moment after building that ramp deck. But yeah, is it just a draw? You cast what's the name of it? You cast Approach of the Second Sons, and then you cast Cooperate in response. Who wins? Just a tie? I've never had a tie happen in my entire history of playing Magic. I have never drawn an opponent. So that's why I'm wondering if it would be a draw. Copy doesn't work. You need to cast Approach. Yep, Shaolin's right. So it wouldn't even beat that combo. Damn, that would be so fun. Imagine beating an Approach deck by copying an Approach. But yeah, you're right. I guess the only way that I could tie someone in Arena would be if we were both playing Sanguine Sacrament decks, and even then, one of us would eventually concede, because there's no way to just draw the game, unfortunately. I kind of wish there was a draw request button, you know? Because there are cards like Sanguine Sacrament where I feel like drawing is something you need to do. And if they decline, then you can just wait. You can have a waiting match. But yeah, it doesn't quite work as well as I want it to. Refuse to cooperate. It's fun, but Shaolin's right. It is a cast trigger, so it wouldn't tie the game as I would like for it to. A waiting match, yeah. I wonder if that's happened. I'm sure it probably has. I don't really play Sanguine Sacrament that much, but I wonder if there have ever been 2 Sanguine Sacrament players that got paired against each other, and they were both really stubborn and waited like 5 hours before one of them conceded. just casting Sanguine Sacrament. Imagine being in a Sanguine Sacrament mirror and having to cast that thing for 5 hours straight before your opponent concedes. I think I would just concede very early. I don't know. That would be just such an annoying game. That's why I want to have a feature where you can request a draw. I don't find this funny at all. I don't know why I find it. I find it funny that that may have actually happened. That's probably happened in Arena at some point. Gideon of the Trials against Gideon of the Trials. That's another way you can tie. Yep. You both get milled out and just don't have ways to kill each other, I guess. And then the turns just pass and you're sort of just sitting there. And I guess both Gideons of the Trials would be plussing the other Gideons of the Trials. So say you have an empty board state, and you have 2 Gideons of the Trial, and all of your cards are gone. You can each of the Gideons Trials can plus on the other Gideons of the Trials, and as long as and the game just ends in an infinite loop, like nothing can happen. I don't know why I'm still going on this tangent. The derails are quite real, and they are in full effect today. Let's talk about Driven to Despair. 1 and a green, until end of turn, creatures you control gain trample, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Despair, 1 and a black. Until end of turn, creatures you control gain menace. I hate having to tilt my head for these cards. Like, some of them I just can't quite read unless I tilt my head. Until end of turn, creatures you control gain menace, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card. I need to reread that. Like, that's so much text. Until end of turn, creatures you control gain menace, and whenever they deal combat damage to a player, that player discards a card. These derails drove me to despair. I'm sorry. I think Shard likes my derails. I think he's just being mean for the sake of being mean. and being witty with this card name. That's kind of annoying, no? Like, imagine you can just get, like, 2 hits in. If you can get 2 hits in, you draw 2 cards and they discard 2 cards. Your creatures also gain menace, so they're harder to block. I like it. It's not too much commitment for your mana. Like, you can just tap 4 mana, have 2 of your creatures, and I'm using 2 as the example because that's a very common number of creatures to have out. 2 of your creatures have menace. You draw 2 extra cards. I like it. Not only that, but they have menace and trample, so if they can get through that combat damage, even if it's a trade, if they have 1 more power than the defending creature has toughness, you'll still get them to discard cards, and you'll still draw cards. This card seems pretty good to me. It does rely that you have a board state. At Ningjo, at Shaolin, you've both avoided the Dom spoilers. No, I have not avoided the Dom spoilers. I haven't fully looked at them. I've sort of just skimmed a couple ones that I like, but I'm trying to stay away from them for now because, first of all, I am reviewing our Devastation. And I know that there might be some people who might watch my streams who don't want to get spoiled. So I wouldn't want to talk about it and, potentially ruin an experience for an unassuming viewer. Furthermore, I kind of just want to wait for the articles to come out. I know on the 21st they're going to be actually posting articles about what everything does, and I think that'll be a far more entertaining way to look at the cards. I don't care about getting spoiled, I just don't want to waste hype. Feel free to message it in my Discord. I don't know if Shaolin's Discord would want you to do that, but I don't really care if you want to talk to me about it. I'm down to listen. But yeah, I don't really want to talk about Dominaria in chat until at least the 21st. On the 21st, I do plan on doing a stream reviewing the news that comes out that Magic is going to release. Because that's when they said they're going to talk about things. So I think it would be a more pleasurable viewing experience if we waited until then and have official Magic articles to read about Dominaria, rather than just big walls of text or mythic spoilers where we can't even see half the pictures. So that's what my plan is for Dominaria going forward. I'm not going to talk about it too much until the 21st. Yeah, you want to see the cards with art? Hey! If Bees is smoking, then I'm smoking too, because I want to see the art as well. But yeah, I think Driven to Despair, it seems pretty good to me. You do have to have a heavily creature-based deck for it to thrive, but assuming you do, assuming there's enough creatures that you can work with, I can easily see this as like a 1 or 2 of being decent. Alright, we are not done with the stream today. We still have artifacts, and we still have lands, so don't go anywhere. We are still fully live. So let's talk about Abandoned Sarcophagus. 3 mana. You may cast non-land cards with cycling from your graveyard. If a card with cycling would be put into your graveyard from anywhere and it wasn't cycled, exile it instead. Fully live, yes. I guess that's kind of a weird expression for me to use, huh? Because you're either alive or you're not alive, right? You're not just fully alive, you're just alive. Or alive or offline, Anyway. Lingo punts per usual, I guess? I don't know. New perspectives, hype. Yeah, this card, I will make a concession to Shaolin that this card does make it seem a little bit more fun. I wonder if this goes in just the regular blue-white cycling deck. Is Abandoned Sarcophagus a staple in those decks? I haven't looked at them closely enough to know. You know, some people semi-alive. I'm semi-alive in the morning. I'm a zombie every morning. Like, you should see me when I'm getting up and getting like a cup of water or something. It's a very unpleasant image. I am a tired motherfucker when I wake up. But yeah, that's when I'm semi-alive. I think they have two around somewhere. I can see that. This looks like a staple for blue-white cycling, and that's without looking at any deck lists, but just the fact that all of your cycling cards essentially come back and you can use them again, that sounds so good. And having maybe like two of these or one of these. You saw my daylight saving times VOD. I hope it wasn't too I hope I wasn't too zombie-like for that. I thought I was filled with energy, but maybe I was a little more tired than I thought I was. I always get derailed, bees. I always get derailed. Don't ever come to a stream and expect me to not get derailed. Forcing you to exile your cycling cards if you cast them normally sounds bad. You think it's bad, huh? I don't know if I think it's bad. I think it's pretty good. Because you're going to have like 10, 20 cycling cards in your graveyard, depending on how much you synergize. Like, if the more you synergize with Abandoned Sarcophagus, the better it gets. Like, imagine having Hieroglyphic Illuminations and like all these other things in your graveyard, and then Abandoned Sarcophagus, you just can get all of them back. Maybe I'm looking into it too much. The one thing I don't like about it is that this is one of those cards that goes horribly in multiples. Similar to a Catcher's Monument. If you have like a bunch of these in your hand, they're essentially doing nothing for you. So I feel like you have to run one or two of these, and I would never go three. I think if you're running three of these, I think you're going to get punished for it. Even two of them, you can pretty easily get punished for it if you just happen to draw into it. But yeah, as a one or two of, I think Abandoned Sarcophagus is going to do a lot of work for cycling decks. One thing about cycling, though, is I believe you have to cycle it from your hand, so you wouldn't be able to make a Drake from your graveyard. You could only make a Drake if you cycled it from your hand, because you can only cycle from your hand, right? Yeah, because you can cast the cycling cards, but you can't cycle the cycling cards, because the definition of cycling, I believe, is discard this card, then draw a card. I think that's how the text reads. So unfortunately, that would be a Nombo combo. There is downside, but I still think it's going to be pretty fun. It just sort of, like, say you run out of fuel and then you just get this, then the engines are just suddenly running again. The one problem with this card is we're going to be reviewing a card later. We're going to be reviewing a card later called Scavenger Grounds, and maybe Scavenger Grounds does make Abandoned Sarcophagus a little bit worse. How often do you get cast out back from the graveyard? Never. Whoo, man. Now we're talking. Cast outs from your graveyard? I am down. Yeah, I like that. I like that little interaction for sure. So I feel like if I cast out from my graveyard, this is what my opponent is going to look like. If I cast something out and use the cast out from my graveyard, my opponent is going to react like this. Getting derailed as usual. Alright. That's how I'll react. If you cast me out from a freaking graveyard, are you kidding me? Oh man, the tilt will be so real. Okay, let's talk about Crook of Condemnation. 2 mana, 1 tap, exile target card from a graveyard. 1. Exile Crook of Condemnation. Exile all cards from all graveyards. I think this is just a worse Scavenger Grounds. Looks like Shaolin during a rant. Dang! Shaolin gets intense then. Don't want to be on Shaolin's bad side during his rants if that's what he looks like. Yeah, I don't really like Crook of Condemnation. Like I said, we already have Scavenger Grounds, which just does the same thing, but better. Like, you don't have to sacrifice Scavenger Grounds. You can sacrifice another desert. I'm just saying the only cycling cards you really cast are dead anyway once you cast them. Exile doesn't seem like a big deal. Yeah, it's kind of hard to say. I think Scavenger Grounds does hurt this deck. Like, say I have Scavenger Grounds out, and I see someone cast an Abandoned Sarcophagus. Before it even resolves, before the Abandoned Sarcophagus resolves, I'll be like, oh, okay, bye-bye graveyards, I guess. So it does have bad matchups. I don't think you're going to be doing quite as well as you'd like against Scavenger Grounds. But I still think it's a really fun deck. Relic of Progenitus. Artifact. Target player exiles a card from his or her graveyard. Is this the same thing? Is this just a reprint? Target player exiles a card. No. Because the target player would get to choose. The target player for Relic of Progenitus would get to choose what they exile. So this is a little bit different. Relic is strictly better. No, because Relic they get to choose. Like, say you're facing a Scarab God deck, and target player exiles a card. They don't have to choose a creature. They get to choose an instant or sorcery or something. Like, they have the option. They're different. Okay. Dagger of the Worthy. 2 mana. Artifact equipment. Equips creature gets +2/+0 and has Afflict 1. Equips 2. Oh, this card's awful. I think Afflict is a pretty mediocre mechanic that they didn't try hard enough on. I feel like they just should have made... They could have made Afflict a little bit better, but just the cards that I've reviewed that have it, they all seem kind of mediocre. This might be good draft, but I don't know. +2/+0 isn't the worst thing in the world. I will give this card that getting +2/+0 as like a recurring thing that happens isn't awful, but I think there's better cards you can use. Like Pirate's Cutlass, for example. You could use that. How the F did bees get away with that spelling and I couldn't get Soul's Garbage? Oh my god, bees. Oh my goodness, bees. Yeah, I do need to give a shout out to Bees for his Abandef Sarcophagus. Abandef Sarcophagus. Okay. I had to, I'm sorry, Bees, I had to go there. Because I did call out Shaolin when he punted Soulscar Mage. Because it looked like he spelled it right. It really did, but for whatever reason it was wrong. A Banedef. Alright. God Pharaoh's Gift. Here's a fun card. 7 mana. Artifact. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may exile a creature card from your graveyard. If you do, create a copy of that card, except it's a 4/4 black zombie. It gains haste until end of turn. This card's good. The question is, how good is it? I know there's a lot of excited people for God Pharaoh's Gift, and I don't know how excited I am for it. I know that it's going to be a deck, but I feel like not having Minister and Refurbish is gonna hurt it. And I know there's that card in Amonkhet that can fetch your God Pharaoh's Gift, but at the same time, I feel like I'm not gonna enjoy this deck quite as much until Kaladesh and Aether Revolt rotate in. There's also Angel of Invention, by the way. Angel of Invention is another big card that God Pharaoh's Gift likes to use and abuse, and we don't get to use any of those 3 cards for this deck after Amonkhet comes in. So there's a lot that we're missing. Is the deck still viable? I'm sure you can get it to work. I'm sure you can get Chupacabras in your graveyard and many other things. White is out of GPG. Blue-black is still sweet, maybe even red. Interesting. So I guess Shaolin has some ideas for it. I'm talking about it mainly from the perspective of the blue-white version. But that is a good point. You don't have to just use that version. You need to mill yourself, though. I wonder, is this why you like God Pharaoh's Gift, Shaolin? Is it because you get to use Azur's Gateway? No, it wouldn't work. Never mind. I was thinking Azur's Gateway, you could put things into your graveyard and then get them back with God Pharaoh's Gift, which would be an awesome combo, by the way. But unfortunately, they do go into exile. How do you get cards into your graveyard? We need a way. We don't have a Minister of Inquiries, so you have to think of something, you know? Otherwise, God Pharaoh's Gift might not work as well as you want it to. You need like a Cathartic Reunion-esque card, right? Something similar to Cathartic Reunion. Maybe Cycling would work. You could run a bunch of Cycling creatures and God Pharaoh's Gift, which isn't the normal way to do it, but maybe blue-white Cycling with Gift. As janky as that sounds, you can get all those cards into your graveyard, and then you slam Gift, and you get them all back as 4/4s. And because you're cycling, you're not going to run out of resources nearly as quickly as you think you would. And let me tell you, there's a lot of creatures with cycling that you can take advantage of with God Pharaoh's Gift. They're not great. They're kind of bad creatures, but they turn into 4/4s with haste. I think that's how I would have to go for it. And unless I get any better suggestions, that's kind of the best that I can see for it. There's just so few ways that I can think of to mill myself. Is there not a card that just like what about that Direfleet Swallower or something? Is that what it's called? Let me just look it up. I honestly forgot the name of it. Did I even get Fleet Swallower? Okay, so I was on the right track. It just didn't have Direfleet in it. So Fleet Swallower, yeah. I mean, this is the best thing I can think of, and it's pretty janky. You have to run a bunch of 7-drops to make it work. But you attack with Fleet Swallower, and thankfully you can choose yourself. You could put like 30 creatures into your graveyard, or not 30 creatures, but 30 cards, assuming... Well, it would be half. It wouldn't be 30, because you'll have already drawn your hand by that point. But what I'm trying to say is that I just can't think of much to mill. Chart a Course, yep, that's a good one. The Kaladesh Energy Mill Minister of Inquiries or whatever sees use in Standard for self-mill. I think Chart a Course is probably the best thing we got. Another card that probably would work for it would be not Minister of Inquiries, Champion of Wits. There we go. So we could run Champion of Wits, and Shaolin and I apparently were on the same wavelength for that. Yeah, that's a good 4 of, and then you throw 4 Chart a Course in. So you have 8 different ways. You have 8 different things. Do you need more than that? Is that good enough? Is that good enough to make God Pharaoh's Gift a viable deck. Maybe, maybe not. I am not a God Pharaoh's Gift deck player, so I can't say from experience how many you're supposed to use. I've never really run a self-mill deck that takes advantage of your own creatures. That is a relatively new concept to me. That's not something you can do in duels. It's not something you can currently do in Arena that would make a good deck. So maybe 8 is good enough. I don't know. That's something that you're going to have to figure out for yourself. Here's a card that mills yourself, but it's a lot worse than Minister of Inquiries. It's not a 1-drop. And it's just really slow and clunky, if you ask me. What's the red draw spell? Are you talking about the card from Rivals of Ixalan that I've been a fan of? Are you talking about... Where is it? I think I know what you're talking about, Shaolin. I just gotta find it. I may have skipped it. Yeah, I probably skipped it. Where is it? There's something in here that discards and draws. Oh, Pirate's Pillage. Sure it is. I guess I just missed it. Is this the card you're talking about? Yeah. So you would have to make it like blue-red instead of blue-white. Maybe you can get that to work, because then you can use you could use Glorybringer and Rekindling Phoenix at that point, which is fun. And what also makes that fun is you can just cast them normally, and then if they die, you get them back with GPG. I kind of like that, actually. Like 4 Pirate's Pillage, 4 Chart a Course, 4 Champion of Wits. You put all of that into your graveyard. You have your God Pharaoh's Gift, and then you have Glorybringer and Rekindling Phoenix as some of your creatures. Maybe Direfleet, Daredevil as a creature. I could see that working. And I think that's probably one of the best ways you can use that deck. I mean, this is the best I can think of anyway, with some help from the chat. According to geometric distribution, 8x is what you want of an effect to see it at least one time per game. Depends on how long the game is, but I'll trust Eugenides' geometric distribution. Man, Eugenides, since when were you like such a math expert? I didn't know. Was not aware. Sounds really intelligent with some of these sentences, though. Ugh. Can we just talk about God Pharaoh's Gift more? Moving on to like Graveyard Abomination. Looks really boring. If Shard didn't challenge it, it must be good. Yes. Minus counters are bad because Shard says they're bad. Sorry, Shard, if I'm putting words in your mouth. Okay, Graven Abomination, 3 mana, artifact, creature, horror. When Graven Abomination attacks, exile target card from defending player's graveyard. Yeah, this card's awful. I was just reading Eugenides' comment. I've mentioned the 8x rule a few times, but never the equation used to calculate it. Yeah, we need some calculations. Get some math in here, Eugenides. Or link an article. I don't know. You don't have to. Don't feel pressured to do anything you don't want to. Alright, here's a card that everyone in Modern is excited about, and I don't play Modern, so I have no idea why it's good. I guess you can cycle a lot. 5 mana, Hollow One. Hollow One costs 2 less to cast for each card you've cycled or discarded this turn, cycling 2. I don't know why this card is so good in Modern. I don't follow Modern. If you want my thoughts on it, they're going to be very confused. Because what I play, which is Arena, and I follow Standard, I think this card is pretty garbage for that. You can play 2 on turn 1. Okay, well, now it sounds a lot better. Shaolin just single-handedly changed my mind based on one 6 or 7 word sentence. That sounds a lot more fun. Still think it's janky. Yeah, I don't know. Modern, sure, you can get them out in turn 2. Standard, maybe you can get them out in turn 2. How would you get them out on turn 2 in Standard? You'd need to have like mana rocks or something and cycle 1-drops. Are there any 0-drops? Any like 0 cycling cards? I don't know. I don't see how this is gonna work in Arena or Standard for that matter. I just don't see it. It doesn't do it for me, man. I liked Hollow One before Nasif. Come on, bruh. Isn't that an emote? Is that an emote punt? I'm pretty sure come on, bruh is supposed to be an emote. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's just not gonna have much of an effect. Even with all these cycling cards, you really need to run a weird deck to make this work. Can you even get it out on turn 2 in Standard? I feel like it would need to be at least turns 3 or 4, if I'm not mistaken. You would need to cast like a 1-drop mana dork, and then on turn 2 you have 3 mana, and you cycle 2 1-drops, and then you play this. Right? That's how it goes. You have your mana dork turn 1. Turn 2, you cycle 2 cards and play Hollow One. Can we do that in Arena? Do we have a 1-drop that will accelerate your mana? I think we're getting one in Dominaria. We're getting a 1-drop mana dork called Llanowar Elves, but I don't want to talk too much about that because that is Dominaria talk, and it's not what I'm here to talk about. It was developed by Japanese players. You should love it. Hollow One was developed by Japanese players? Wasn't it developed by Wizards of the Coast? Weren't they the ones who designed it? Or were Japanese players like, here you go. This is an awesome card you guys should create. And Wizards of the Coast was like, wow. Oh, the modern deck. Okay. That's true. If it's made by Japanese players, those are ninjas by blood. That does make me like it a bit more. I'll have to look at it though. I do not watch much Modern at all because I get very confused when I watch it. I put Modern on and I see like 10 different cards that I don't know what they do, and it sort of discourages me from continuing to watch it. You know what I want them to do? And this is sort of a rant that I just never thought I was going to get into, but it's not so much of a rant as it is a plea for Magic to stream Magic the Gathering in a better way. And this is very futuristic. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but I wish that I could watch Magic in a way where I could hover my mouse over what cards people are using. Say on Twitch, I'm watching a Pro Tour, and I'm watching these 2 decks go off, and I've never seen what Glorybringer is before, and I'm a new player, and I hover my mouse over the card, and I see exactly what it does. I would love that. They have that for Hearthstone. Is that Hearthstone Twitch, Shaolin? Because someone told me that. They said that they did that for Hearthstone, and I have no idea how they do that because I went to some random Hearthstone Twitch channel, and I started hovering over cards, and it didn't work. So is there like an extension that you have to download, or like how does it work? Does it only work for pro events? I think it's called Innkeeper. What is Innkeeper? Huh, it's an extension? Okay. So, essentially, I would download Innkeeper and any card that I hovered over. Wow. See, I thought it was like a futuristic idea, but it's already been done. Come on, man. Ugh. Yeah, if Magic could do that, that would be amazing. Because that would make me want to watch Modern more. I wouldn't have to watch a stream and have no idea what like 70% of the cards even do. I would just be able to hover my mouse over it and immediately know. The future is now. Yeah. Come on, Magic, get on your shit. Quit letting Hearthstone come up with all these cool features. You were cool once too, Magic. You once had the biggest card game following. Get on your shit. Yeah, that is a feature that I really want, though. I think that'll make viewing anything, just 10 times more enjoyable. Okay, Manalith, 3 generic. Tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Nate is working with Switch. If Nate announces that today, I will jump for joy. I'll jump for joy on stream. I'll get up out of my chair next stream if he announces that, and I'll jump for joy. You heard it here first. And the reason I'm saying that is because he's not gonna announce that. So you guys aren't gonna see me jump for joy. It's not gonna happen. He's not gonna talk about that. If he does, damn, you guys are gonna really hold me up to that promise. But I don't think he is. So I don't feel bad making it. All right, Manalith. I think it's a pretty bad card. I don't know. Yeah, it's a bad card because we have Cultivator's Caravan, and I know we won't be able to play with Cultivator's Caravan, but I'm gonna have to click on that later, I guess, Shard. I guess I can click on it and tell you if I saw it. I can do that, right? No, I did not. Okay, I'll have to read that later. I just wanted to answer Shard's question. Okay. Yeah, I think Manalith is pretty bad though. We do have Cultivator's Caravan, and I know we're not going to be playing with that. That's what I was just getting over saying. But 3 mana for a mana rock. I think I'd just rather use a dedicated ramp spell than a Manalith. I didn't really read the post because I am streaming right now. I'll have to read it fully later. But yeah, I think this card's pretty mediocre. I'd much rather run cards like Spring to Mind, for example. Cards such as Gift of Paradise I would rather run. I feel as though Manalith doesn't quite do it because of other cards that do it better. Mirage Mirror, 3 mana artifact. 2 Mirage Mirror becomes a copy of target artifact, creature, enchantment, or land until target land. You can copy lands. You can copy a land. What? Oh man, I'm gonna have to make my lands copy deck. Just throw 4 Mirage Mirrors out. Copy a couple forests. That's such a weird thing to throw in, that it can be a land. Okay. Anyway. All jank aside, I don't know if I really like this card. I feel like copy flipped gateway. That would be fun. That's a fun idea. It doesn't say non-legendary. You could actually copy a gateway. Eugenides is coming up with some sweet ideas. But I think this card's still garbage. I feel like there's better copy cards, you know? A card that I've been a fan of recently, and I cannot remember if it is from Rivals of Ixalan or if it's from Ixalan itself, but I'm just going to try and find it real quick. Let's see. Alright, it doesn't look like it's there. Maybe it's in Ixalan. Has haste. Let's see. Where are you? There you are. Chiliani's Sunshifter. Yeah, anyway, Tillinolli's Skin Shifter. I like this card a lot more because you do have Rekindling Phoenix, and this card seems interesting because you can just... You have your Rekindling Phoenix out on turn 4, and if you get this out on turn 5, you can swing in for 8, which I like. What did I miss? Let's see. Let's get back to the cards. Becomes a copy of target artifact, creature, enchantment, or land until end of turn. It wouldn't matter if it was a legendary, right? Copy flips gateway, that's legendary. Just tap. As long as you can... Oh, I thought you meant... No, I did understand what you guys were saying, but I was thinking of an opponent's gateway. Yes, you cannot copy your own gateway and expect for it to be great. I was thinking, say your opponent is using gateway, you can actually copy that. Because it doesn't matter what land it is, it can be an opponent's land. But yes, you are correct. If you did copy your own Azer's gateway, it would not work as intended, unless you wanted to just have double mana for a little bit and have to sack. Which I do think is kind of sweet, if you could copy that, but it's very niche. So niche so that I think that it's not worth trying to even go for. But yeah, I think Mirage Mirror is pretty bad. I think we have better copy cards out there. Building around copying opponents' legendary lands. I want to do that one day. I want to build a deck that's based around hoping my opponent plays X card, you know? Wouldn't that be fun? Just having an entire deck built around beating one niche card, and if they play that niche card, it's like so fulfilling for you. Like, I'll give you guys an example. I'll give you guys an example of playing a niche card in hopes of playing another niche card that will be awesome. So I told Shaolin about this a long time ago. There is a card in the format called Direfleet Daredevil. And this is about as niche as you can get, right? So what I did is I made a Gruul... essentially like a Gruul Monsters-esque deck. And I built a sideboard with the intention of stealing a Mastermind's Acquisition and casting it, and then getting any card from my sideboard out. And I did that. I did that. I played Direfleet Daredevil. I accessed my sideboard through my opponent's Mastermind Acquisition. And I ended up getting Sunbird's Invocation out, which was in my sideboard. So I got Sunbird's Invocation because of my opponent's Mastermind Acquisition. And that's why I loved going for those kind of strategies. You know? Building around copying whatever an opponent's going for. Like, building around in that way, that is fun. That is so fun, planning ahead like that. Ninja already doing arena challenges before me. It wasn't even a challenge. It was more like what was it? It actually came up before. That's the thing. It actually came up once where my opponent had a Mastermind's Acquisition in their graveyard, and I essentially casted Daredevil, and I was like, I don't have a sideboard. I should build one. That is what gave me the idea for doing that. So if you're ever using Direfleet Daredevil, build a sideboard. It's not going to come up very often, but when it does, you'll be able to Mastermind's Acquisition and get back any card from your sideboard that you built for specifically that occasion. That is what I call planning ahead. And it's really fun and really janky, but it's sweet. You might even not be able to call it janky, because Direfleet Daredevil isn't janky. The fact that I did that is just a fact that Direfleet Daredevil is a good card. Like, I think Direfleet Daredevil is pretty decent. It obviously has a lot of bad matchups right now, as Shaolin has pointed out in some of his streams. You're not going to catch any Merfolk players unawares with this. Like, they're just not going to have a graveyard you can use. Same with most dinosaur players, but it's a really fun, creative thing you can do. Okay, let's go back to reality and talk about Sunset Pyramid. Yes, I do not have video proof, and I have not really been recording anything. I plan on just streaming once the NDA gets lifted, and that's what I'm gonna do. I wish I had a video of that. That would have been amazing if I had recorded that. But even if I did, I wouldn't be able to show you guys until, you know, March 31st if they stick to their promise. Okay. Sunset Pyramid, 2 mana, artifact. Sunset Pyramid enters the battlefield with 3 brick counters on it. Tap 2 and tap itself. Remove a brick counter from Sunset Pyramid. Draw a card. Really, I'm not allowed to show pre-NDA stuff even after NDA lifts. Well, it's good. It's a good thing you're here, Shard, because I did not know that. Huh. Well, that's a really good thing to know. I'm glad I didn't punt. I could have made some really bad punts if I had been recording. So good to know. All right. 2 tap, scry 1. Meh. I'd rather just run treasure map than this. This is like a very expensive, clunky treasure map. You know, you play this turn 2, and then you have to tap 2 mana every time to draw a card. It doesn't turn into a land like treasure map does. This is like just a bad treasure map, if you ask me. And I don't think I'll ever use this card. I would never spend an uncommon for this as long as treasure map exists. Okay. Traveler's Amulet, 1 mana, artifact. 1, sacrifice Treasure's Amulet. Search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, then put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So it's kind of like Renegade map. Yeah, Shaolin's already on it. I was going to talk about Shaolin, but he already is all over this. I was going to give you a mention. I was like, oh yeah, Shaolin, I bet he likes this card, but he's already talking about it before I can even make my comments. That's how much Shaolin likes Renegade map, that he is just on top of this stuff right as it comes up. Doesn't even give me time. Alright. Yeah, you can use it the turn it enters, but I think I agree with Shaolin. I like Renegade map more, and I'm not a big fan of Renegade map. I don't like it that much, unless you're using Artifact Matters decks, which do exist. You can totally run decks where you can cast things for cheaper. What's the name of that mechanic? The mechanic where you cast things for cheaper when you tap artifacts. I did forget it. But yeah, I think this is it's a worse Renegade map. It does have a cooler artwork than Renegade map, though. I know you can use it the turn it enters, but I still like Renegade map more. It's less cost intensive. But yeah, look at this art. Is that, I believe that's Hazoret, the Fervent that this guy is holding. It's like a cartouche of Hazoret, and there's light shining out of it. I don't know. I can't really see it that well. It's hard to tell what it is, but it looks like Hazoret because of those sharp ears that I think Hazoret has. I believe Hazoret has some big ears. I don't know. He's holding Hazoret the Pervert. Yeah. Pretty sweet art. Let's see if the flavor is sweet. Why wander in search of a new home when the path is laid out before you? Flavor's okay. The pervert gave the amulet to her. That's funny. Wall of Forgotten Pharaohs. 2 mana. Defender. Wall of Forgotten Pharaohs deals 1 damage to target player. Activate this ability only if you control a desert or there is a desert card in your graveyard. So it's kind of like it's kind of like Thermo Alchemist. It's kind of like the card in Ixalan, Lightning Rig Crew. It's similar. Not the same, but similar. I think it's worse, though, because Lightning Rig Crew can at least untap every time you play a pirate. This one can only do it once per turn. How often do players play walls in constructed formats? Probably not very often. Draft, maybe. Yeah, Shaolin's saying good in a desert draft deck. I agree. This might actually not be bad in a draft deck, because an 04 can block a lot of shitty draft creatures, you know? You're going to be able to block a whole lot of things with this, and you're going to be able to ping them quite a bit over the course of a game. I know draft is not a constructed format, but yeah, it's not good in arena. But if we do get draft, and I know draft is something that they want to add, then Wall of the Forgotten Pharaohs, you can go for it. It's a common. It's a common, so you'll be drawing them pretty frequently out of your boosters. But yeah, that is gonna do it for the finale of Hour of Devastation. This has been a 12-part series that I started on March 1st. I started at the beginning of this month, and we are now at the conclusion of it. I am not going to be going back to streaming duels. This is not it's not a game I'm going to go back to anytime soon. So I'm sorry if any of you guys want me to stream duels. That's not going to happen. I have about a week's worth of content planned. Oh, I didn't go through the lands. Fuck. Alright, I deserve like 10 punts. I deserve 10 punts. Why did I forget the lands? Oh. Damn it. Not only did I forget the lands, but I'm in a set where lands matter. It's not like I can just wing it and be like, yeah, we just got a couple tapped lands, or we got, you know, a couple dual lands. Ugh. Dang it. Alright, Crypt of the Eternal. Enters the battlefield tapped. Yes, I do have to talk about land. So much land, yes, the flood. Look at this flood. There's like 20 lands I have to talk about. Alright. I'm not going anywhere yet. I still got a little bit of content to talk about. I think this card's pretty bad. One thing that I didn't realize about it that makes me like it even less is that you have to tap mana just to get more mana, which makes it awful. Oh, it doesn't enter the battlefield tapped. For some reason I thought it did because it had this little text here. But you still have to spend extra mana just to use it. It's like you're spending mana to get mana, and I don't like spending mana to get mana. Yeah, it's pretty mediocre to me. Not a fan. I've never been a fan of these kind of cards where you just have to... Yeah, it's Bolus's mana fixing. Yeah, I don't like Bolus's mana fixing. Unknown Shores is so good right now. Yeah. It's basically like an Unknown Shores that doesn't gain you 1 life, right? That's basically what it is. It's just Unknown Shores that doesn't gain you 1 life, but you can get any mana. I don't like it. Desert of the Fervent enters the battlefield tapped. This card could see some play in my ramp deck if Ramunap Ruins does not see play. I'm replacing all my Shores decks with these. Instant 4 of Shaolin Stamp of Approval. Is this the new Renegade, the best thing since Renegade map? Did I say Naya Dinos? I meant Naya Ramp. Yeah, it is going to be in my Naya Ramp deck. I do play a lot of Naya Dinos, so I can see why I would punt that sentence. Okay, Desert of the Glorified. So I'm not going to talk too much about these ones. They're just tapped lands, which are nice. I think they're great draft cards. As like maybe a 1 or 2 of, and you can cycle them. They're kind of messed up because you can kind of look at the monument cards and then look at these and see what happened afterwards and see how fucked up Amonkhet became as a plane. But other than that, there's really not much commentary to add about them. Oh, I was speaking to Shaolin. I know he runs Unknown Shores in all his Naya Dinos since he never runs any planes. I'm not going to talk about Shaolin's decks, but it is interesting. Alright, let's talk about Dunes of the Dead. Desert. When Dunes of the Dead is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. I actually sort of like this card. We're gonna get pretty janky right now. We're gonna get extremely janky right now. Dunes of the Dead. Whenever it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Remnant Excavator. You may play lands from your graveyard. Is that a combo? I think it's a jank combo. It's not gonna be amazing, but you can do it. You may play land cards from your graveyard. There you go. Desert Synergy. So you run 4 Remnant Excavators. You run Dunes of the Dead type cards. You run like Hash Up Oasis type cards. You run Shefet Dunes type cards, or If Near Deadlands. Like, you can really tailor it the way that you want it to. I'm just showing examples of cards that do things from these deserts. And you can build that deck. As long as you can play deserts from your graveyard, you can just recur zombies over and over again, which is extremely janky. I'm not saying this is good, but it's a deck that you can go for. Alright, Endless Sands. 2 and tap, exile target creature you control. 4 tap, sacrifice Endless Sands, return each creature card exiled with Endless Sands to the battlefield under its owner's control. No. I know you can protect cards from removal. You could use Endless Sands and protect something from a removal spell. But I think that's pretty garbage. I don't think I want to run Endless Sands just to try and protect stuff and later on use it. Like, it just seems really expensive. Doesn't cover any color either. I love the art for this card, though. You just see a big sun and then a silhouette of a person on the top of a sand dune. I think the art is very well done. 7.77 AC. I've never seen that A character before. Then again, I don't use Celsius. I use Fahrenheit, so it's a little different for me, isn't it? Because that is how America does it. Anyway, getting derailed. Let's talk about Heshep Oasis. Pay 1 life, add green to your mana pool. 1 green, sacrifice a desert. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. I think this card's great. I think it goes extremely well in my Naya Ramp deck when I have Carnage Tyrant in there. We don't use that A for Celsius. It's just a random formatting error. Okay, fair enough. Anyway, Shefet Dunes, or is it called Shef Dunes? No, it's called Heshep Oasis. I think it works extremely well with cards that have trample, such as Carnage Tyrant, that your opponents have a lot of difficulty interacting with. Just giving Carnage Tyrant +3/+3 could mean a lot. He's already a 7/6, so making him a 10/9 is 2 swings away from lethal if they don't have a board. So you're literally 2 swings away from lethal. Assuming, your opponent's empty boarded. I think that's great. The fact that I can recur that effect over multiple turns by sacrificing other deserts. You can sort of go beat down. And this is just one application for the card. I'm sure there's others, but I really like the synergy between it and Carnage Tyrant. Seems really good to me. Let's go back. Wow, I clicked on all of the sets except Tower of Devastation. You can only cast it at sorcery speed, though. That is the one downside. You can't just attack with Carnage Tyrant and activate it at instant speed, unfortunately. But I still think Heshep Oasis can really do some work for you. It also covers green, which is nice. It's not like a tapped land. Like, you can get this in untapped. You will have to pay life, but it's only 1 life, which I don't think is the worst thing in the world. I really like this card. Okay, Hostile Desert. to exile a land card from your graveyard, Hostile Desert becomes a 3/4 elemental creature until end of turn. Wow, we got a man land! We got a man land! Yes! Feels like duels all over again. You got your Shambling Ven, and you got your Hostile Desert! It's a 3/4. You have to exile a land from your graveyard. I think I like my Shambling Vent more. I think I like my rare lands more in duels that turn into creatures than I like my Hostile Desert. It does require less commitment to turn this into a land, though. You only have to spend 2 mana, but you have to exile a land card from your graveyard. So I feel like that's kind of tough to do. I know deserts are popular, but they're not. You're not gonna have like 20-something deserts in your graveyard. You'd have to build a deck specifically for that one purpose, just for Hostile Desert to really go off. Good with cycling lands, that's true. So you could just cycle any of these, above lands that I was talking about. You could do that. Doesn't have to be a desert. Yep, that's also true. But most of the time it will be a desert. You normally don't have lands in your graveyard unless you discard to hand size, or if they run cards such as Star of Extinction. So I still feel like it's going to be hard to exile land cards from your graveyard, even under these circumstances. Evolving Wilds, that's a neat little splash. I like that one in particular, because that's a very easy way to get a land into your graveyard. That's probably the best one you can do, is run Evolving Wilds, Hostile Desert. It'd be a very strange deck, though, that would probably have a kind of a crappy mana base. Like, if you really want Hostile Desert to work, if you want to build a deck very strongly around making Hostile Desert a viable card, then I don't think you can do that. I think it just needs to be, like, maybe a 2-of. You think it could go in black-white tokens. I see that. Because you get the Revolt, and you get the Revolt with Hidden Stockpile by sacking your Evolving Wilds, and then later on, you can turn Hostile Desert into a 3/4 by exiling your Evolving Wilds. Again, though, like, you do need to have a lot of lands in your graveyard, which can be difficult. It's too bad that it has to be your graveyard. If it was any graveyard, I would be a lot higher on this card. But because it's only your own, I feel like it's pretty difficult to make this card work. Unfortunately. The fact that it only provides colorless makes it a little bit awkward. World Shaper. Yeah. We're getting into Janktown. We're definitely getting into Janktown if we're talking about World Shaper and Hostile Desert, but you can make it work. I'm not going to get in your way if these are brews that you want to do. Have at it, Os. Alright. I think I'm pretty much all set on Hostile Desert. Let's talk about Ifnir Deadlands. So similar to Hashep Oasis and Ramunap Ruins and Shefet Dunes, you may pay 1 life and add black to your mana pool. World Shaper plus GPG. Whew. We're going off the deep end, boys! Alright, 2 and a black, sacrifice a desert, put 2 -1 counters on target creature an opponent controls. Activate this card only anytime you could cast a sorcery. Now this is a excellent looking card with Grind to Dust, because it fits right into the colors anyway. It's not like you're needing to splash a 3rd color to make Grind to Dust work. You already have a black source, so it can cover your swamps. And you're able to make Grind to Dust even grindier and dustier. You can get so much grindy dust out of this Grind to Dust. Oh man. You'll be sweeping up dust for days. There'll be so much dust that you gotta sweep up with all these counters that are putting on creatures. Man, these jokes are just getting worse and worse. I'm sorry. That's what happens. the longer these streams go. But no, in all seriousness, I think that's a pretty good combo. If near, oh, I'm getting some dust emotes. Wow, that's awesome. But yeah, if near Deadlands, I think it's pretty good with Grind to Dust. And I definitely would like to make a deck revolved around that. Omega Bees has requested a bad joke. I don't know any bad jokes. All of my jokes are perfect and infallible. They are all hilarious. And that's why I can't tell you a bad joke. You have to ask Eugenides. Alright, Ipnu Rivulet. Pay 1 life, add blue. 1 in a blue, sacrifice a desert. Target player puts the top 4 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. I like how this is a multi-purpose card. You can either mill yourself or your opponent. It synergizes pretty well if you want to top deck some Aftermath cards. It also synergizes really well with Approach of the Second Sons. You can just mill your Approach of the Second Sons, and then you're 4 cards closer to it. I think Ipnu Rivulet might actually be my favorite of the desert lands that we're getting, other than maybe Ramunap Ruins. But well, Ramunap Ruins is the strongest one. I think Ipnu Rivulet is, in my opinion, the most fun one. Because there's a lot of synergies with Ipnu Rivulet and Approach, which I am a massive fan of. I know we can't use Glimmer of Genius, but we can use Ipnu Rivulet to get your Approach 4 cards closer, which I think is good. And yeah, it just does a lot for me. I know Ramunap Ruins is probably just a better card, hence why it's banned, but in terms of the fun factor, Ipnu Rivulet takes the cake. Alright, let's talk about Ramunap Ruins. 2 and 2 red, sacrifice a desert. Ramunap Ruins deals 2 damage to each opponent. This would be a pretty hardcore upgrade from Desert of the Fervent if we're able to use it. And I wouldn't even feel bad spending an uncommon on it, because uncommons are pretty common. You can get uncommons relatively quickly at this point. It might feel slow at first because we're going to be having 4 sets worth of cards to try and dive into, but over time you can easily get tons of the uncommons that you want. Question is, can you play with this? And I don't know, but I do think it would be a pretty strict upgrade to this desert. Just the fact that I can switch gears with this deck. If I had Ramunap Ruins, I could start sacking deserts and pressure their life total alongside like my Carnage Tyrant or something. That would definitely be a new angle that I could use this deck for, that I can't right now because I don't want to just include a banned card that might just not even make it. But yeah, Ramunap Ruins, really good card, and we might not get to play with it. Dunno. Okay, Scavenger Grounds. 2 and tap, sacrifice a desert, exile all cards from all graveyards. Yes, this is the land that deals with Scarab God. This is why this land is so popular. If Scarab God wasn't a popular card, I don't think Scavenger Grounds would be a popular card. Deserts, you just sack deserts, and graveyards matter right now. We're in a format where graveyards definitely matter. There's GPG, but there's also Scarab God. Aren't you happy we didn't skip these lands? I just forgot about them. It was a complete punt. Yeah, I hate that I have to use this card because it doesn't cover any mana color. It's a little awkward to get out, but I feel like it's a needed poison to employ against Scarab God decks. You need to have this card. Otherwise, I feel like Scarab God decks might just run all over you, and it might just be a sideboard card. If you're facing GPG or Scarab God, you sideboard this in, and this is the way to deal with them. It's just a land, so you aren't having to commit any spells or anything. It's just a land. You have to fracture your mana base a little bit by not having colors that you want out at certain turns, but yeah, it's a needed poison, unfortunately. I'd love to trash on this card if Scarab God wasn't good, but you need to have this. This is a very important card. Chefette Dunes and Vamps. Well, let's talk about Chefette Dunes. Chefette Dunes, 2 and 2 white. Sacrifice a desert. Creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. Yes, this does go in Vamps, and I can tell you it goes in Vamps. Jack Kiefner, he made top 32 in Memphis. He ran 4 Chefette Dunes. So you are correct, Sharda. This is a vampire staple, and I love this land because of it. You already have your Radiant Destiny. You already have your 4 Legions Lieutenants. You also get Chefette Dunes now, and get to have another way to just buff all your creatures for a turn. I love it. I think Chefette Dunes is an excellent card. And I am definitely going to run all 4 of them in my Vampire deck. I think that's how good it is for Vamps. Yeah, no problems with this. Also a way to trigger life loss just for funsies or synergies. I think that the synergy that Shaolin is referring to, and I could be wrong, but I think the synergy he's talking about is a card that I have never played with called Paladin of Atonement. At the beginning of each upkeep, if you lost life last turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Paladin of Atonement, which is also a vampire, so it does synergize pretty well as a whole with all this. When Paladin of Atonement dies, you gain life equal to its toughness. Well, there's also a Danto Vanguard. You can also trigger life loss through your Danto Vanguard. You need life gain, though, you know? Just because you're losing life, you have to gain life. Like, you can't just lose a bunch of life and expect to win. You need to have some life-gaining cards. So it does feel kind of risky, but it does sound pretty fun as well. I'd love to just go off with a Paladin of Atonement. That would be a dream come true. And he does get a lot of help. He gets a lot of help with Chefette Dunes, that's for sure. Vamps gain life, not many of them. I know that we have the token makers, which gain life, and I know that we have Legion's Landing, which creates a 1/1 lifelinker. But aside from those cards, there's not many actual lifelinkers. I know there's the 2/2 lifelink vampire for 2, but I think that card's kind of mediocre. The other life gain would be Martyr of Dusk, and I think that's why Jack Kiefner valued Martyr of Dusk over a Danto Vanguard, is partly because of the fact that when Martyr of Dusk dies, you get a 1/1 with lifelink, which is very important for the horse. The horse that makes more horses when you gain life. And other than that, like, you could use Moment of Triumph, but I don't really think that's what you want to do. I think I'll go over my deck real quick. I am not gonna go too ham on this deck. I'm just gonna talk about it briefly. This is the vampire deck that I want to build, and you can see the Chefette Dunes in there. The deck that I want to build. First of all, Jack Kiefner, he valued Ixalan's Binding over Vraska's Contempt, and he valued Fatal Push over Moment of Craving, and I can't fault him for that. Ixalan's Binding does deal with Scarab God pretty well. There's not many ways to deal with enchantments out of blue-black. But at the same time, I think Vraska's Contempt synergizes a lot better with Crested Sunmare. The fact that you exile the Scarab God is still really good. Even if you're not going to deal with all the Scarab Gods, at least you're getting one of them out of the way. And I think this is really good, because it has pretty much all the ways you can gain life that there are with Queen's Commission, Call to the Feast, Legion's Landing. And then you can also have Crested Sunmare, and you can Vraska's Contempt, or you can Moment of Craving, and create a horse just because of that. I find that synergy incredibly awesome. I was trying to come up with a cool adjective there, but awesome was the best I could come up with. I'm sorry if you were expecting if you're expecting some better words there. But no, I think this is really cool. just Crested Sunmare working with your removal spells. And yes, as Eugenides is pointing out, my Radiant Destinies, rather than name the, like, billion vampires I have, you always have to name horses with Radiant Destiny. It's very important that you get 4 Radiant Destinies out and have 9/9 Crested Sunmares. Very important. Otherwise, it throws the entire synergy of the deck off. It's borderline unplayable, unless you name horse with your Radiant Destiny. But that's how I want to use this deck. I want to Vraska's Contempt, I want to Craving, and I want to make horses because of it. I think that's just way too fun to pass up. Naming one for Vigilance could be helpful. Though when he played in top 32, he did not name horse. Yeah. The only thing I hate about his deck is the Ixalan's Binding, and I know that it's in there for Scarab God. You don't just run Ixalan's Binding unless you intend to hit either a Scarab God or a Torrential Gearhulk with it, and that's why it's a 2 of. But I like to be more optimistic. I like to think that I can just make horses with my Vraska's Contempts, which is probably jankier. I'm not a pro, unlike Jack Kiefner. He probably has a better take on this than I do. But I still think the fun aspect of making horses with Vraska's Contempts sounds amazing. Okay. Anyway, I got super derailed there. I didn't mean to get that derailed, but I did. Shafet Dunes, and I go into an entire deck tech for a couple minutes talking about why I like horses. That's where this conversation goes. Shafet Dunes, okay, let's just talk about horses for a bit. Alright. Survivor's Encampment. Tap an untapped creature you control, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. I don't like this card. I really wish that we could have ended the stream on Shafet Dunes instead of Survivor's Encampment. In fact, I don't like Survivor's Encampment so much that I'd rather end it talking about Forest. But I guess I can read the flavor text. What will happen to us, they asked. The Vizier paused. I think that's up to us now. That's a pretty badass flavor. Because Nicol Bolas just took over the world, and all the gods are dead. All the gods are dead. It's not up to the gods anymore. It's up to them. That is a really cool way to end a stream. I'm sorry for shitting on you, Survivor's Encampment. But in terms of flavor, this is one of the best cards in the format in terms of flavor win. I know most of you guys probably don't even read any of the stories, but even if you know just generally how the story goes, even then it's just a really cool flavor win. You can see all the encampments out. They clearly ran away from Amonkhet, whatever the name of that city was called, Nakta Moon or whatever, and they're on their own. I think that's awesome. Anyway, that is gonna do it for my stream. Do I have anything else? No, nothing else. I am done. This is the finale, episode 12. As I was saying earlier, I started this on March 1st, and I haven't streamed I haven't streamed Duels since February. It's been a long time, and I don't intend to stream Duels anytime soon. You forget non-multicolored cards. Oh, thank you for the bits of Mega Bees. I do appreciate the support. Thank you. Anyway, this is going to do it for this stream. All 12 parts. It was a commitment. I was walking into something big here, and I don't plan on doing this for Kaladesh. I don't plan on doing this for Aether Revolt, because as I said, it is a big commitment to talk about every single card in the format. What I might do for Kaladesh and Aether Revolt, I might do a top 10 cards from each set, and that's what I'm planning on doing. Again, I said this at the beginning of my stream, and I do want to say it again at the end. I am going to be doing a Ixalan and Rivals of Ixalan meta talk for post Amonkhet once that rotates in. And I'll try to figure out what I think the top tiers will look like. I I've kind of been swayed by Shaolin. I think I'm not gonna go for a tier 1 deck because they just require way too many rares. You'd need to spend like 20 something rares to make a Scarab God deck, or to make a Red Green Monsters deck, or to make, some top tier thing. I think I'm gonna go a little bit off the beaten path. Right now, I'm starting to think I want to go for horses. And it'll be a lot faster to do that. I'm not going to have to take a month off of my life of grinding just so that I can play with Scarab God at its finest. I don't even know if I'm going to buy gems, because I plan on making a new account under the handle Ningjo if they don't let me change my name. So I'm probably not going to buy gems. But anyway, going to be talking about the meta tomorrow, and I'm pretty excited for that. We'll be able to look at what cards decks are going to lose and what cards, what cards we'll replace them with. Anyway, that is going to do it for the stream. I know that Nate Price plans on going live in about an hour and a half. Have I contacted them about name change? I don't know why they would have any reason to help me. Like, I know I streamed the game, but I don't think they would help me with that, Sharda. Maybe they would. Maybe I'm a little too cynical about that, but I don't see why they would just let me name change if they're not letting anyone else name change. Who's streaming next? Either CGB or Nate Price. I don't know. They've had other people contacting them about name change. Well, I don't know. Maybe I can look into that a little bit. But anyway, that is going to do it for today. I will be back again tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be talking about the meta. Now that I have all these cards out of the way, I feel like I can have a better discussion on what cards I think are going to do great, what decks I think are going to do great. And that's going to do it for the stream. Hope you guys enjoyed, and take care. I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.